Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending your lunch break with us. My name's Kristen. I'm the Marketing Demand Gen Coordinator at Aqueduct Technologies. I'm joined by my colleague, Rachel Zamsky, a Marketing Specialist here at Aqueduct.
Hi, everyone. Before we get started, I just want to note that today's call is being recorded. We love to keep things interactive, so feel free to drop your questions into the chat or Q&A box at any time. We'll do our best to answer as many as we can during the Q&A session at the end. Today's webinar is in partnership with Avant, Hunter, and we're excited to have him co-hosting with us. And with that, Adam, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself and kick things off.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate it. So, hi, everyone. My name is Adam Sugarman. I'm the Director of Voice and Data Services at Aqueduct. Thanks again for sharing your time with us today. We hope you find it valuable. As Kristen mentioned, we're here with Avant, and I'd like to quickly touch on our partnership with them. Avant is a technology services distributor, or TSD, and a strategic partnership with Aqueduct that provides us with access to extensive breadth of vendors and technical resources who we can engage with and bring an agnostic and consultative approach to our client needs. This partnership allows us to save clients time by streamlining the buying process, aligning the right vendor with your business requirements, and typically build a strong ROI around it. One of the technical resources that we have is Hunter Edmondson. He's a field engineer focused on AI, CX, and EX platforms. Hunter brings an extensive background working to align the right solutions for clients, and as you hear, is very passionate about the topic today. So welcome, Hunter. And I guess let me start and kick things off for, just what are some of these new platforms and how are they having an impact on CX?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Adam. Man, there's such a lot to look into when we look at CX as a whole, right? So the way that we try to look at it is, hey, traditional CX, or what we called CCAS, or even contact centers prior, all that technology has grown and multiplied, but now we have the use of AI that can sit on the front end, in the middle, or the back end. So just to tell you kind of what these platforms look like and where they have effect, if you look at the CX framework, the way we see it, you've got digital engagement up front, right? That's how the user chooses to engage with you. Traditionally, that was through a contact center where you called in and maybe you got an IVR that said, hey, press 1 if you need support, press 2 for billing, etc. Now that's full omni-channel, right? So now that's through email, through SMS, that's through phone, that's through chat. So lots of different ways on the front end of the digital engagement side. And then we traditionally had, a spot where you were in a routing or an ACD, so you're having to go through this phone tree. Now we've got virtual agents thanks to AI, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But those are virtual agents that can literally take what you're asking through a chat or through a voice. Sometimes you don't even know you're talking to a virtual agent. AI is that good.
I know.
They're going to solve that for you, right? And now we've gone from, hey, we've got AI that we can look at and say, hey, this has an intent to it, so provide resources. Now we've got like generative AI that's moved into agentic AI, and agentic AI said, hey, not only can I go ahead and tell you where these things are or give you this data back, but I can actually make some intent. I can do some things like an agent would, solve this for you, right? So we moved past that into the routing and ACD, and now we've got AI. Traditionally, you had to go through and build out a phone tree and try to route certain clients or certain customers to a specific type of customer service agent, or in the financial sector, maybe routing them to someone that can talk about billing or invoicing or accounts, etc. Now we have AI that can turn around and read through all of that information that came in through a chat or an SMS or an email, and it can route all that data to the best fit customer service agent. So if you think about it, I'll give you a good use case. If you're thinking about, hey, I recognize when someone comes through a chat that this is not coming through in English, but maybe it's coming through a different language. AI is going to interpret that language, determine what it is, and then based on credentials you've set inside of your call center or your contact center, it's going to automatically route that to an agent to assist. If that agent is busy, it's going to put an AI front end that's going to interact with that in their language until that agent is over, right? So once we move from that routing and ACD to the virtual agent area, virtual assistant area, we've got now AI that can provide agent assist, where it can turn around and say, hey, I realize that this person, based on the audio I hear, or based on the chat, or based on the SMS, they're looking to talk about mortgage rates. So by the time a customer service agent picks up that phone or answers that call, it's already popped up on the screen, all of the loan details that are pertinent to this person, right? So better take the customer, but also taking care of that employee. So we'll talk a little bit about the CX, and we'll talk about the EX and how those things apply. And then we'll talk a little bit about the interaction analytics and how all this can be pulled through AI. And instead of having to have someone, a supervisor on the center floor, they're equipped with all this data, this business insight in real time now, instead of waiting to the end of the day to pull a report and hoping it comes through by the next day, right? So we're equipping all of these people through the CX experience using a lot of the AI tools we have available today.
Right. So it's like three separate levels of impact, right?
Absolutely.
You know, all the way through the stack, from a customer experience perspective and the people that it impacts on the back end. So where are you seeing customers gaining the greatest value from these solutions?
Yeah, so we've got a few solutions that I'll hit on that'll kind of tell you about that front end. One, I like to show this. There are some companies, and I'll mention them just so you can research them, and hit up Adam if you've got any questions around any of these. I'll be glad to jump on a call and talk through some of them. One of the cool pieces, I'm using AI currently in this call. It's a product called Crisp, K-R-I-S-P. And Crisp, where we're seeing a lot of value with that, is Crisp can go on any desktop. I'm on a Mac currently. It could be on a Windows machine. It could be on any type of virtual desktop. But it installs and provides bi-directional noise canceling on any type of your calls. It can do language translation, live language translation, which is pretty impressive to watch.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
It has all these impacts that are easily deployable through any type of enterprise deployable commerce. So think of Active Directory. Let's say you've got a call center and you've got 300 agents that all need this. It can be pushed out through the MDM or whatever type of services you're using to push that software out. So think deployment, super simple. It's as easy as running on a desktop client. I'll give you an example now. If it worked, you didn't hear all those claps because it's using AI to pick up on my media stream, my intonation of my voice, and it's isolating all the other noises around me. So that's a really cool product we're seeing going in. And here's the use case for that. I always get people to say, hey, that's a really cool thing. I like that, but tell me how to sell that to my customer. What does that look like to my customer? How does that impact me as the customer, right? And here's where we see it. In terms of like a return on investment, what we found is that, one, you want to have a great customer experience. And that's where we oftentimes look at that front end and say, hey, how do I make this experience better for my customer? So imagine either a remote contact center agent, or better yet, in a contact center, right? There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Oftentimes there's conversations that you'll hear over a cube, or maybe you'll hear background noise inside of a home, et cetera. And that can't necessarily be prevented. But what we can prevent is the noise cancellation and the isolation of that voice. So we see it on the customer side. We see it as a benefit because the customer's hearing everything clearly. There's no, can you repeat that, right? We're also hearing it on the employee side or the contact center agent side, because that employee can also hear what's going on with their customer. They're also not having to repeat themselves. So we're seeing AHTs, or that handling time, we're seeing those shrink, because that game of, hey, can you repeat that again? I didn't hear you. What was that number? Yes, I understand. No, I'm not trying to get here. I'm trying to get here. All of that's becoming more clear. So Crisp is a great example of that. Another provider in that space is called Sonus. They do a great job with that too. Sonus does accent neutralization. So again, in that same EX experience, if you have offshore and nearshore agents, maybe there's a language that just, it's great English, but it's just not coming through perfect. We're finding that those contact center agents are asking us like, hey, can you neutralize my accent? Because it actually takes me way less time to have a conversation when it's just coming through. And the cool thing about that is it holds the intonation, the sound, the tone. Everything's the same. The customer is hearing the person's voice as it is. It's not manipulating it other than to make it more neutral, right? So some really cool things right inside of that AI space. And then a ton of what we're seeing value inside of the contact center is around virtual agents and self-service. The ability to take data that you have available inside to you and use companies like a Capacity or a Yellow.ai, and they can take all that data, scrape that data from FAQs, from knowledge bases, from internal servers, and they can provide that data back to you in an instant in your own chatbot, whether it's for internal or for external, right? So imagine being able to take a website that traditionally doesn't have a chatbot on it and be able to put a chatbot in front of it. Even if your contact center is the same today and you love who you have, you can put that as an over-the-top solution and stick it out front. And that's going to turn around and equip your entire organization with, hey, here's a chatbot that can answer all the rudimentary questions. Here's how we take care of it with self-service. We'll talk a little bit about the ROI, I imagine, a little bit in this, but just talking about financially where that meets. If you can take a self-service and take an agent out of the situation by handling it up front, one, your customer's happier because, again, in today's world, everything bleeds up from the consumer to the enterprise, right? We've become so consumer driven that we need something now, we expect it now, and we want to be able to take care of it as soon as possible so we can get back to what we're looking to do. So the cool part about having AI and being able to put all these pieces in this place, one, it's augmenting, it's not displacing employees. That's a question I get oftentimes is, hey, what if AI is so good that it displaces my employees? That's not AI's goal, at least in the CX space, right? The goal is to augment, empower, make these employees better employees, and ultimately take those employees and be able to reuse them in the organization and better or more skilled labor challenges, right? Being able to take care of, hey, I don't have to worry about you answering for the 400th time on what page of our website shows where you can buy this product. Instead, I can have you make those meaningful conversations with our customer service teams and things like that. So it's able to repurpose those employees and ultimately give your employee a better experience as well.
Right. And it takes away that rush to, handle so much volume, right? They can spend more time on those meaningful conversations that they need to, and they're trained to handle versus those rudimentary type calls that are coming in that an AI platform can take care of. Yeah, and the accent neutralization is great. I don't know if it works for guys like me with a New York accent. I'm sure people at times would like to not hear it, but yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff that's going on. And I think everybody probably on this call has had those situations where you call into a contact center or you're talking to a customer service person and there's that background noise, whether it's someone working from home or not, right? So it would be great for me. My dog starts to howl in the middle of the afternoon for some reason, and not hearing that. And it's been great because I've used it and I've had him do that, and it wasn't even heard on the other end of the call. So it's pretty cool and powerful stuff. So with regards to some of these platforms, and you talked about a little bit, keeping their platform, right? A lot of people are happy with their contact center platforms today. How complex is it to implement and integrate these types of solutions?
So I would say it's not a super complex piece, and here's why. One, if I said to you today, like, hey, Adam, you and I are going to stand up this AI solution. We're going to build it from scratch. We've got a budget. Here's our go live date. Okay, and now we need to tie it into these three systems so it can read and learn, and then compare that against a large language model. I'd say that's pretty implementation heavy and pretty costly. But thankfully, we've got the best of breed partners that do this. This is their bread and butter, right? And so they're able to come in alongside of us and say, hey, let's look at the whole scope of the work. Okay, and you're interested in connecting maybe these three platforms, right? Maybe you're looking to add your website, maybe a SharePoint that you have internally, or maybe an Evernote, or maybe we need to add, some other piece, right? Or maybe you want it tied into your CRM. They're going to come in and make that scope of work, be able to tell you exactly, hey, this is how we can do it, and this is the way we're going to use it using these APIs. All we need is someone who can give us either API key data or someone that can walk us through where these need to be pointed to. And it's a pretty easy stand up. I would say, I'm going to throw out an industry guess here. I would say that a lot of the AI solutions that we have today, whether we're talking remarkable Poly.ai, which is easily the best voice AI I think I've ever heard. In fact, if you ever reach out or listen to their product. It was founded by linguists, and they're incredible. Everything's on brand. Something like that where it's super, the implementation is heavy because they want to make sure they match your brand. If you have a Southern speaking person as part of your brand, they want to make sure that AI, that speaker, that role, that conversation, those tones, those sounds around that sound Southern, if that's part of your brand. I would say something like that could take 3 to 6 months, right? But the actual lift on you as the customer is not a heavy lift at all, because you're simply giving them that data, providing this is what we want to sound like, this is what we want it to do, right? And the nice thing about having these partners that can execute on that is that this is what they do every day. So we're talking about some standing up a chatbot that could probably be done in 3 to 4 weeks, to standing up a full AI front end voice solution tailored to your brand or your business, maybe could take 6 months, right? So it's, the beauty is that these people do this every single day, and they do it for very, very large customers and very small customers. Nobody is off the table, right? But the burden or the implementation is not on you as much as it is these suppliers that are going to come in and say, hey, we're going to run you through project management. We're going to make sure that you've got this right here. By the way, this is our go live date. Oh, you need it sooner? We can do that. These are the things that we need to get. So from an implementation thing and an integration side, it's the Wild West. You can go as far as you want with implementing AI. The nice thing is that the hard part is not on you as the customer. It's on the provider coming in to help you, and they're able to escalate that because this is what they do all the time, right?
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm going to jump back to a little bit of a use case question too. With regards to, right, we tend to focus when we have contact center conversation about inbound, right? But some of these platforms can be leveraged for outbound capabilities as well, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll knock a couple off that I'm just thinking of, but one is called Convoso, and Convoso actually specializes in outbound for revenue generating teams. So that is their whole core focus is, hey, we want to take care of the outbound side of things. We want to use AI, we want to use algorithms, and their whole goal is connectivity, making sure you have a good connection rate, right? On an inbound, we look at that, and that's kind of that reactive, right? On the inbound. Inbound is saying, hey, Adam has a problem with something, so he's going to call in on his own. Outbound is more of that outreach, whether it's, hey, I need to go collect on this invoice. Maybe I need to schedule an appointment time with Adam to make sure we can take care of this billing issue, whether it's a dentist office or doctor's office, right? Where you constantly have an outbound. Convoso does the outbound dialing portion, make sure it's all routed correctly, make sure your numbers are clean so they don't come up on someone's iPhone or someone's Android as a spam call, right? So that way you're increasing that connection rate. They've got some fascinating use cases. If you're someone that does a lot of outbound calling or a lot of outbound dialing, I would certainly check out Convoso. Adam can steer you into Convoso and get you a meeting with those guys and just see the tried and true practice they have to literally have a whole business built around outbound dialing and revenue. Another good one to take a look at is a company called Drips, DRIPS, and Drips specializes in AI with SMS. So Drips allows you to essentially run an outbound campaign to numbers that you already have. And their whole goal is they're using AI to determine where you get the best response rates. So they've got some really cool use cases in there. Oftentimes we as consumers, as the end customer, oftentimes it's not great for us to maybe have a phone call right now. If Adam and I both get a phone call right now, we're not going to even know it's there because we're in the middle of this, right? But a text message is so much easier to communicate back and forth with an end customer because it's on their timeline, whenever they're able to read, whenever they're able to respond. And so Drips has an entire business built around using AI to figure out when your end user is most likely to respond. It's going to generate, so generative AI, it's going to generate things like, hey, and I'll use collections. That's a really easy one, right? Something like, hey, Hunter, you have a hospital bill that's due for $561, and we just want to make sure you're aware of it. And I can respond back and be like, well, that's awesome. Maybe I don't have the $561 today, but is there any way I can pay you $300? And it's going to agree to that without having to have an agent sit behind it because it knows its ultimate job is to help collect. So it's going to agree to that, and then it's going to give me the information right in that text message on where I can pay towards that hospital bill, right? So it's using AI to say, hey, my ultimate goal is to help this person become an inbound call where they can handle whatever they want on their timeline. But I'm going to use the SMS text messaging to interact with them until we get the best response, right? Until we bet the best time, et cetera. So this can be used in, we see it a lot of times in medical offices, dental offices, doctor's offices, appointment setting with lawn care or pest control. With any type of inbound that you might need to either set a time, pay a bill, et cetera. And that's all through SMS. Their whole practice is through SMS. And that's something you can bolt on today to a system you have already in place, like we talked about. Oftentimes, just to clarify inside of there, a lot of the terminology we see within customers is, we call it over the top or standalone. So if you have something you love today, maybe you're on the fence and you're like, actually, I'm not crazy about what I have today. Let me talk to Adam about that and see if there's a whole replacement with AI that I can stick in there, right? That's a big piece of what we do every day and the calls that we're on every day. But then there's also that, hey, I've got what I've got, and maybe I'm on a contract for a while, or maybe I've already built this PBX setup and I want to stick with it on-prem for a while. So many of these solutions are what we call over the top or standalone, and they can just go on to what you have today and then immediately open up your scale, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And which leads to the next question around, financially, there tends to be a very strong ROI with a lot of these platforms, in part because you're not right sizing the contact center, but you're optimizing the contact center, right? Whether it's revenue generation, right, from the outbound capability, obviously that's kind of speaks for itself. But on the inbound side of things, again, there's typically a very strong ROI that ties into this, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the industry standards I'll throw out that are pretty fascinating to me, and I've collected a bunch of this data over the last couple of years. I read it, I've seen it in different places with different analysts, but this one always stands out to me. The average contact center agent, so you've got an agent answering phones, and maybe you say, hey, I don't really have a contact center, I more have a customer service team with 10 or 15 people. The math still applies. For every single minute that you've got a contact center or a customer service agent answering a phone, you're looking at $3 to $4 of cost across to the company, right? In the AI self-service world, the average transaction is transacting anywhere between 30 and 38 cents. Right. So imagine that I can turn around and say, okay, hey, from an ROI perspective, I can say to you, hey, do you pay $3 to $4 a minute for your agent to have to sit through, hey, can you tell me what your issue is? Yes. Okay, what have we tried to provide steps ahead to adjust it? Okay, not for every minute that you've got, you're wasting $3 to $4 potentially in customer costs. Versus if you could have some type of agent, self-service, virtual agent, chatbot, voice IVR, IVA, they're going to take 30 cents to 40 cents for answering one of those questions. So where we see a huge ROI is sticking one of those virtual agents or self-service bots outside on that digital engagement and letting them kind of be that first wall of defense. And then ultimately at a much lower cost, 10% lower cost, like 90% savings. Yeah. You're able to answer and facilitate those questions and provide that information back. One, to make a happier customer. Two, to save costs from an ROI perspective in the business. And three, ultimately, to have a employee experience where that employee can still be working on some of those harder, more difficult things, right? A really good explanation that I'll tie into that is I listened to an AI demo the other day that was quite incredible. It was essentially a caller coming in and saying, hey, I'm sorry I haven't been able to call in, but unfortunately we had a passing in the family, and AI was able to understand that there was a need for bereavement. And AI was able to understand, like, hey, I recognize that I'm going to ultimately probably hand this to someone, but I'm going to go ahead and empathize with the caller.
100%.
Right. And so it set up that customer service agent to be able to use that human empathy that we have, right, they were able to build upon that, make that a much more meaningful call in such a difficult situation. One of those that a contact center agent getting that as the first call and opening up the statement is a pretty heavy thing to try to work through as a customer service agent. But when you have that AI that's able to do that up front and to set that stage for you, and then to pass that over to your customer service and say, hey, this person had a loss in the family, this is where they're at. That agent could come into that conversation and say, hey, let's work with you and figure out what we can do to help resolve the issue you're having today. But it was because they had something up front that was gathering that data, that intent, that voice, that emotion, processing it and handing it over so someone with human empathy could finish up that conversation, right?
Yeah, it's amazing stuff that's out there. I've seen and heard some of those things as well, and I've toyed around with some of those demos too with the agentic AI voice bots. And one of it called and as a demo and said, "How are you doing today?" I said, "I've had better days," and the response was, "I'm sorry to hear that." Like it's pretty impactful, and to experience that firsthand was very eye-opening for me and impressive. So for anyone evaluating these services, what are some key considerations they should keep in mind?
Yeah, so I think kind of what we talked about, let's say you're looking at some of these services. One, I would have an open mind to what conversations, when you're having these conversations with these suppliers or these providers, I personally say, hey, like, what are some of the best practices you see in my business, right? In my vertical, in my customer service organization, et cetera. I would be open to that. I would always ask those questions. I think oftentimes when we hear AI, I give this explanation all the time. If I ask my 3 children what AI would be, they would say it's Alexa, right? If I asked someone like my younger sister who's in her 20s, if I said, what's AI? She would say, it's that thing people use to like manipulate images and create images, right? If I talk to someone my age or in this industry and say, hey, what's AI? It could be anything from, hey, we're looking at AI and security. How does it stop breaches today? What does that look like? How does it interface with customers? So AI means a bunch of different things to everybody. So if I'm looking at using AI in my customer experience or my employee experience, I want to try to take in as many stakeholders as possible internally and gather that feedback to figure out where AI can work for us, right? And so something we haven't really hit on, but just to kind of give you an idea, if I'm evaluating the services, I want to make sure, is it a customer experience I'm looking to generate?
Yeah.
Or is it an employee experience
Right.
I'm looking to generate, right?
Yeah.
Easy would it be in our own jobs today if someone says, hey, I can give you AI, something like a Copilot or something like a Lucy, I can give you that data. And Adam, your job is going to just be so much easier. Everything you would need internally is at your fingertips. You could say, hey, what's our PTO policy, right? Or, hey, when's my next paycheck? Or, hey, can you tell me what our dress code is for events? Or maybe it's something work related from a customer saying, hey, I'm looking to figure out what customer we have in South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Imagine all that data
Right.
at your fingertips.
Yeah, like I mean, I think about like IT service desk, right? So think about, I need to reset my password. I need access to this, whatever it might be, right? And talk about high value or dollar per minute cost, right? Those resources tend to be, have specific expertise and might cost a little more than your average, customer service type agent. So yeah, no, it's all powerful stuff, and it's. I know it's kind of a little bit of a new world with a lot of these different platforms and tools that are coming about, which obviously creates a lot of noise and confusion in the marketplace, right? And customers are trying to kind of figure out what is it, how do I use it, how do I leverage it, what does it mean for me, et cetera, et cetera. So really great conversation. I appreciate you spending the time to kind of talk through that. I don't know if we have at the moment any questions from the folks on the call. I don't see any yet. Oh, here's one. How about this? What are some common mistakes businesses make when evaluating these platforms?
Yeah, that's a good one. So, in my house, we would be told that there are no mistakes, only opportunities, right, Adam? That's how I was told. So I'll say from a mistake or an opportunity side, I think one is if you rush to the market, one of the things that one of my old leaders would always say is, hey, if you have an AI strategy or you're thinking about AI and you tell me that you've got a 15-month roadmap, that's useless, right? Because AI is changing so rapidly. By the time you deploy whatever that AI is you want to use, there's already something better. On the flip side of that, I would say if you rush and you don't go through the consultative measures of, hey, let me engage Adam, let me get Adam and another resource in there, right? Let's talk about this. You might actually find that you've got a bigger use case for AI in another part of your business that will actually have a bigger return on your investment. But if you rush into it and you're just like, you know what, we're going to go to Google and find the first AI provider we can find, and we're just going to book it and we're going to try to implement it, I find that that usually doesn't work out well. You want to have someone that plays in the AI space, that lives and breathes that on a daily basis, someone that can guide you as a trusted advisor and say, hey, what you're using it for or your intent to use it for is good. But by the way, if you use this provider, you can get that and 3 more other things for the same cost, right? So just knowing that from an opportunity perspective, I think the pitfall is that you rush into it on your own without any type of advisory or without any type of sounding board. And then you deploy something that you ultimately don't end up using, right? Or you've got a very low user rate. I would say another one that I would probably think about from an opportunity or a mistake would be if you're looking at it for just a single piece of your business and not evaluating the whole, that can be a miss, right? And I alluded to the fact that maybe you get it for one piece, but you could have had it for all these other pieces. I think it's all about, and AI again means different things to different people. It can mean your accountant wants it to figure out how to scan documents, pull numbers, give interpretations of that numbers. It can mean that your CEO wants to see how it can plug into Power BI and ultimately give reports or summaries, right? It could be your sales guys that are looking for, I'm looking for meeting summarizations. I'm looking for scoring on who spoke the most in the meeting. I would like to know executive summaries based on that information. So it can mean a lot of different things in there. So I would say just the opportunity or the mistake that could be made there is if you don't look at how many stakeholders in the business are interested in it, and then if you don't look at that and form it through someone that does this all the time, that knows the AI space, that can tell you the correct providers to look at to evaluate, or even seeing a lot of these demos for yourself. That's another thing that I would tell people is Adam has access to all these providers and he can set up demos at any time for you to see this product in action. So if you're on the fence about, hey, is this something really applies to me? Maybe I don't need AI. I would encourage you to check it out because we've already talked about a lot of the ROI on it, but even the total cost of ownership over time will be much, much less than using humans to try to do all of that work, right? So by augmenting those people and empowering those people with AI, it's ultimately going to save you a lot of money across your business.
Yeah, and and back to the vendor landscape too, right? I mean, that's kind of why we partner with Avant, right? You guys are evaluating and putting those vendors through through your paces to make sure that they're strong in the marketplace, right? So that speaks to why we feel the Avant relationship is so important. So touching on your last comment too around the ROI, another question came in. How long typically before realizing ROI do you see? Is there an average or is that?
Yeah, there's no average necessarily because it's going to be different because AI has so many different. I would say a lot of people are probably going to see, let's say it's a chatbot, right? You could see ROI in as little as 1 to 2 months after you implement a chatbot.
Right.
I would say for some of those IVR voice products that we talked about, IVA, I would say you might look at ROI probably, you would see it instantly, but in terms of seeing that return on investment, actually dollar for dollar exchange on the back end of implementation, I would probably say a little further into that 5 to 6 month range.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, how we all score return on investment slightly different, right? If I see my agent or I see my employees immediately being more productive, maybe having a better attitude at work, which creates a better dynamic or a culture at work, I would say you would see those pretty instant.
Yeah.
Those are going to be some pretty quick return on investments. Dollar wise, you might see that those month spaces. The cool part about a lot of these providers, by the way, because they focus only on AI, right? If I told you the landscape, I have a slide that if I put up, you'd see there's something like 2,400 to 2,500 at any given just today in people that have AI that provide services, right? So imagine that we take all those people and we funnel it down to the best of breed, and we say on those suppliers, hey, these suppliers will be able to give you a total cost of ownership on the product. They'll be able to produce for you when your ROI would hit, right? So before you even book these deals, before you're even interested in signing with a supplier, you're going to have all that information from those suppliers given to you up ahead of time based on case studies just like yours, where they're seeing real customers today see that return on investment and that total cost of ownership.
Right. No, that's great. Yeah, no, it's that, and it's funny. I mean, these platforms in and of themselves raise the bar for customer service and customer experience, right? I know from my own, personal side of things, when I call into certain, companies that I'm a customer of, right? My expectation is now much higher, right? So having, that obviously is it's not a immediate dollar impact, but it certainly makes me a more satisfied customer, right? Which obviously has a return. So no, that's great information, and it's a lot of great information you shared with us in the last 37 minutes, Hunter. So we appreciate the time. I don't see any other questions at the moment. So again, thanks you for the time, and looking forward to catching up with you shortly.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining today. It's been awesome.
Yep, you're on mute, Kristen.
Sorry. Awesome. What a great conversation. Thank you, Adam and Hunter. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. We hope you got a lot out of this session, and it painted a clearer picture of what's possible and what to look forward to as you explore solutions for your business. We'll be sending out the recording for today's webinar along with some key takeaways in a follow-up email within the next day or so. We'll also include all contact information if you'd like to connect with our team directly. Thanks again for being here, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Great. Thanks all.
Bye.